This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
This week's ChangeMaker is Patricia Wells, the Executive Director of the Oakland Housing Authority, one of the largest housing authorities in California, providing housing opportunities to over 16,000 families. Patricia has over a quarter of a century experience in public housing, public administration, nonprofit executive management, and is currently the president of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. Patricia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so very much. I'm delighted to be here.
We are grateful to have you. First, let's just start it right off. You were appointed executive director of the Oakland Housing Authority just a few years ago, but you've been in housing for a while. So why don't you just start us there and share your story or what led you to where you are now?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I started my career actually in Washington, D.C. And then after taking some time off to have children and start that journey, I came to Oakland and my first landing was with Habitat for Humanity and the Western region. And so there I was associate vice president for the 4 Western states and really had a great launch into supporting boards that are focused on affordable housing for the community. And with Habitat, it's about sweat equity. And when the opportunity came up for the Housing Authority almost 24 years ago, it was in the space of economic development and workforce development and helping the residents who utilize the subsidy get into job training, education training, and employment opportunities, hopefully leading to careers. And that journey just continued that with the evolution of housing authorities to go from traditional public housing to a variety of different type of affordable housing products and more impacting communities. So we went from kind of siloed bricks and mortar to realizing that affordable housing impacts not just the communities that we serve of families in affordable housing, but the communities that are our neighbors. I was able to work in almost every department here in the agency. And so over the 24 years, did everything from HR to property operations to IT to capital improvements to, as I said, resident and community services and government relations. And then in October of 2019, the board selected me amongst very incredible candidates to take over leadership of the agency as the ED and CEO. And it has been my ministry and my mission from the day I entered the building there in 1998 and to today. It's what makes my heart sing, is to do this great work.
Patricia, I believe you may be our first guest who has worked at Habitat. Can you share some of the projects that you are most proud of while working with Habitat for Humanity?
Sure. It was just a little over a year and a half that I was with Habitat. And at that time in my role, my focus was to support the boards for the various affiliates across the 4 region states. And when we talk about what made me proud, it was the fact that I was able to journey to sometimes bedroom communities, rural communities, urban communities, and meet with volunteers essentially who sit on the Habitat for Humanity board, focused on helping families who met income needs, which typically were extremely low income and low income families, work in partnership with others who volunteered their time in sweat equity to do the funding and the creation and the building of their homes. And I did that all across California and Nevada. And what made me proud about that was just realizing how many individuals in each of our communities will volunteer their personal time and their family time to help another neighbor, if we look at everyone being our neighbor globally, achieve the dream of homeownership. And that was just amazing. And during that time, I was also the point of contact for creating one of the first international conferences for Habitat for Humanity affiliates around the globe. And that was just amazing, again, to be able to connect with so many people who had a similar interest and mission for helping community.
I love what you're describing. You're really talking about access blended with service and, of course, affordability. What a creative combination there.
It was pretty amazing. And what transitioned me, quite frankly and honestly, is at that point in time, I had 2 little ones, and the ability to travel and serve different communities was a bit much. So I'm just being honest that was one of those moments where being able to concentrate on this dynamic city of Oakland, which I've fallen in love with, came at an opportunistic time. And so it allowed me to become even more a part of what makes Oakland sing with my volunteer time and with some of the other organizations that I'm able to work with, in addition to the Housing Authority. So that was kind of the nepotus for that transition.
So let's talk about the Oakland Housing Authority. Start with how you established your strategic vision, or maybe just describe your leadership and what you're seeing blossom in yourself, in the agency. I know that's a loaded question, but let's let's start with strategy and leadership, and then we'll go into programming.
I had the gift of being mentored by some of the greatest minds, leaders, and visionaries in housing authorities during my journey here. The gentleman and female leader that hired me, John Gresley and Sharon Harrison Kasi, both instilled in me that the best way to understand strategy is to listen to the community that we serve. And so we start with hearing what's being talked about from residents, a variety of surveys and information gathering to see what, from the point of view of the individual going through the life experience, how they see the services and the opportunities that would assist their families to A, stabilize in affordable, quality, safe housing, and then B, to have access to pathways to be able to gain economic independence, economic thriving, education thriving, health thriving, being a active part of their community. And so that is the genesis of strategy. And as you work with the families that we serve, the residents that we serve, our stakeholders, that include our partners who are landlords through the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the many, many treasure chests of community-based organizations and government partners that we have, and of course, then our staff and our Board of Commissioners, we kind of go through different phases of information seeking, question seeking, engagement. And then the inner core team of leadership spend a lot of time looking at what those metrics tell us. And we compare it to other great data from stakeholders and oftentimes educational institutions, and try to figure out with the resources that we currently have, what can we achieve? And what are resources that if we brought them in could take us even to a higher level of service? And so that's how strategy is formulated. It's not an event that takes place over a 3-day retreat, but rather an ongoing living, breathing process as the needs ebb and flow. What we would have created and did create back in 2001, 2002, as the Housing Authority was entering into what was called Hope 6 redevelopment of traditional public housing, has really evolved to today as we look at the different types of affordable housing that's needed to meet the needs of those today who find themselves in need of affordable housing. So it's an evolution, and a path that never ends. It's continuous.
Oh, I remember Hope 6 back in the day, and they were so competitive, much like choice neighborhoods today. But could you imagine if every housing authority or affordable housing provider had access to that type of program, and it wasn't just, one of 30 or one of 15 awards per year?
No, absolutely, and it's actually what's necessary right now. Our partners at the Housing and Urban Development Department certainly encourage housing authorities to engage in what's known as repositioning of traditional public housing, which essentially means doing some sort of disposition of the traditional public housing through a variety of methods to that will gain additional resources to redevelop and sometimes demolish and rebuild affordable housing, often under the project-based voucher or project-based rental assistance programs, combined with low-income tax credits and other funding sources. And every housing authority, whether rural, urban, smaller communities, as well as our large urban cores like Oakland, have to have it. And so when you talk about imagining, I have to tell you, not only should we imagine it, but we have to make it a reality, because it's the only way we're going to meet the goal of making sure that every person who calls this land home actually has a home that is safe and decent and has quality to be able to thrive in, or else we're just talking about existence. So that's not just a vision, my friend. It's a necessity, quite honestly.
Because one of the tools that's out there for repositioning still doesn't work with the numbers for housing authorities. So they're still left trying to hobble together, which is a very casual word. You said it much better, trying to bring together your project based vouchers, your rental assistance, tax credit, all of those programs. But that's still not either enough or it's still not viable for some housing authorities. So we're still not quite there yet, are we?
No, we're not. And I believe you're referring to the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, also known as RAD, which, while good intended for high cost communities like Oakland, the Greater Bay Area, often a lot of your coastal large cities, the subsidy does not address the real cost of affordable housing in restricted communities where housing in and of itself for everyone is out of reach. So you're absolutely correct. And so that hobbling, we often joke of it as lasagna layering, that you literally have layers of different types of subsidy, starting with land acquisition, capital subsidy, and then ongoing operating subsidy. And today, certainly for Oakland, when we're building affordable housing, we not just assume, but require access to ongoing supportive services for every family to be something that continues during the life of the operating subsidy.
And this is an active fight for preservation that you're having to do because in your area, I'm assuming the market is, exactly as tight as it is in California. So maybe let's transition here and just tell us what are the affordable housing challenges or give us an idea of the market landscape in Oakland so we don't assume, but give us what's going on in real time there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I grew up, if you will, learning and falling in love with this industry here in one housing authority, it allowed me to grow up not being a developer, understanding and becoming immersed in it. So right now, the average cost of developing an affordable housing unit in the city of Oakland can be anywhere between $700,000 and $900,000 per unit. And that involves land acquisition, as I mentioned, the cost of the capital improvements, the different types of processes that have to take place, like environmental approvals and assessments. And again, that operating subsidy, that is the portion of dollars that pay the portion of rent that is the subsidized rent for each of those families who are paying 30% of their rent for the life of the project. And typically we look at it in increments of 15 to 20 years, is astronomical. And being able to achieve that with the need that's necessary right now, I would say that given the indicators of how many individuals find themselves homeless in the city of Oakland, easily we could build 5,000 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms. And so if you can imagine at that cost, that scale, what it would take to achieve it. However, we find ourselves in Oakland in a cohort of very dedicated nonprofit developers, government entities and partnerships, the Housing Authority in partnership with our friends at the City of Oakland, as well as the County of Alameda, the state of California. There's lots of creative discussions going on how we can actually do just that, and Katie, and that's making sure that we develop the property that's necessary. But we're talking about years at a time. So anytime a project starts discussion today, it's typically 3 to 5 years before we actually are cutting the ribbon and welcoming new families to move in at those costs that I kind of hinted about a bit earlier.
Approximately how many people are on your waiting list, just to give us also a glimpse of the demand?
That's an interesting question because we have several waiting lists for the different type of products. I should mention here in Oakland, our housing authority has waiting lists for project-based buildings that are project-based voucher buildings, buildings that are public housing buildings, and then wait lists for our housing choice voucher program. If I were to pull them all together, I would say that actively right now today, we have over 2,000 people on the combined wait list, but that's only because we're about to open up all those wait lists. And so typically after the opening of any of those one wait lists, which are 5-day openings, both online as well as in person. On average, we receive anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 applications during those 5 days waitlist opening, no matter which of the programs we're opening. And then we lotterize it down to a specific number based upon that program's portfolio so that we can try to transition families within a 2 to 4 year time period. So at any given time, I would say that you have at the minimum 20,000 families seeking to get on a wait list here in the city of Oakland amongst the different type of subsidy programs we manage.
And when was the last time the waiting list was open? Can you recall?
Yeah, our last waiting list opening was in 20, and it was for one of our specific communities, was in 2021. And it was just for 1 and 2 bedrooms, if memory serves the right, for project-based voucher communities. And again, open for 5 days. And my memory is that we got about 10,000 applications in the door from families seeking affordable housing.
So just a comparison, you're going to have 10 to 20,000 people apply, and best of luck to you and your team living through that process, because those are very dicey, but they can be well managed and they're
Yeah.
possible. But in comparison, you recently received 500 vouchers. So we're talking about 10 to 20,000 people applying here, and your new award was for 500 emergency housing vouchers. So quite a contrast there in the demand and the supply. Speaking of those vouchers, how's that going? I know several agencies are struggling with leasing. It's not easy to move from voucher to leased, especially in tight markets. How is Oakland doing?
Well, I have to, this is where I get to sing the song of the Housing Authority team here in Oakland, as well as the stakeholders that are our partners here in the Bay Area. We have a tight knit group of the Bay Area housing authorities in Alameda County specifically. And each of us, Oakland, Berkeley, City of Alameda, and County of Alameda, joined together and went into partnership with the coordinated entry for Alameda County so that we would have synergy on helping families navigate this process as streamlined as possible. I'm happy to say that Oakland specifically is in the 70 percentile of achievement for families leased, which for our size of an agency is at the top of the group. So we're doing extremely well. And you mentioned tight market. The 500, and it was actually 515 vouchers. The 550 vouchers we received were one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is working with our partners in coordinated entry and the community-based partners that then provide the services of these souls who are trying to go through a very complicated process to get from unhoused to housed, where there's interviews and services and document collection. Often that requires them to work with even more government agencies. There is a goal for this housing authority to make sure that we use our moving to work status to fund additional services to help with trauma induced challenges, mental health challenges, sometimes just the needs of basic household needs. And we have a gift packet that we give of the basic moving things from paper goods to kitchen goods to toiletry goods for each of the families that receive a voucher. And then the last trick is welcoming in landlord partners who have the 1 and 2 bedrooms that we need in order for those vouchers to be used. So the voucher is one piece of the subsidy, but the real landing space is enough 1 and 2 bedroom units that meet the requirements for housing quality standards with landlords who are eager to join partnership with our program. And so in order to support that, the Housing Authority launched a landlord incentive program that has signing bonuses, assistance with inspections, assistance with repairs to units if that's necessary, to encourage, support, and celebrate the landlords who are our partners. And I think that helps us get to that 70%, but we're eager to get to 100% somewhere, hopefully by the early spring.
Those are great highlights and hints for any other agencies that may be having a hard time. So thank you for mentioning that. Well, hold on just a minute, Patricia. We're going to take a break, but coming up in the second part of my talk with Patricia Wells, the Executive Director of the Oakland Housing Authority, Patricia talks about the impact of programs like NARO's Merit Scholarship Fund.
Just the celebration when a young person is able to go to college and the joy on their face and the joy on their parents' face is just undeniably one of the highlights of what we do.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.